Thank you. Let's get started.
All right. So, The Unholy is your first feature. What inspired you to direct beyond writing?
They forced me into it. I am fully, first and foremost, a screenwriter. I love the book. I've loved it since I was 13. I wanted to make this movie since I was 13. And as my career developed in the film industry, I carried the book around to studios and said, who'll do this? Come on, who'll buy the rights for me? And in 2018, Screen Gems agreed, but they threw me a twist and said they wanted me to direct it because I was a name of sorts writer, and they felt that because I had lived with the book for so long, I had it in my head and I could do it. And to make matters a lot easier, they paired me off, of course, with Sam Raimi. They brought Sam aboard to produce it. And at that point, I felt comfortable that maybe this was doable because Sam was the adult in the room. So that's how it happened.
So tell me, why did you get the idea to adapt the book of James Herbert, Shrine, and turn it into this movie?
When I read the book, I was already a film buff, and I love movies that combine genres. So this felt like a great marriage between the classic supernatural thriller like The Exorcist meets a great journalism thriller like Shattered Glass or Spotlight in this day and age. And I felt like seeing a ghost story through the eyes of a corrupt journalist, a man who believes in nothing, but ironically desperately needs this supernatural event to be genuine, otherwise he doesn't have a story and his career won't get resurrected, was a great juxtaposition. The man of no faith needing this to be real. And I also very much appreciated the element that author James Herbert had worked into his book of how the Catholic Church actually goes about to prove or disprove a miracle. So I felt that whole procedural process gave the script a spine that allowed me to tell a compelling ghost story.
So why did you choose to direct a horror movie? Are you a fan of the genre?
Huge, huge. Primarily a fan of horror movies. But it wasn't actually a big departure from my previous work because I'm better known for writing fairy tales like Huntsman and Beauty and the Beast and Hercules to a degree, a myth. And supernatural thrillers aren't that much of a change from that because supernatural thrillers are just dark fairy tales, darker fairy tales. And if you look at the original Brothers Grimm stories, they're filled with violence and horrific imagery. So it wasn't so much a turn this way as much as a lateral move this way.
And so tell us about working with Jeffrey Dean Morgan. What did he bring to this film?
Jeffrey has this effortless charm, this coolness, and this appeal that I very much needed for Fenn. So the protagonist is, for 2/3 of the movie, not the most likable of characters. He's selfish, he's corrupt, he's kind of crooked, he's kind of manipulative. And the only way to make a film with a central character like that before they achieve redemption is the audience has to want them to turn out to be a good guy. And there's only a handful of actors who can pull that off. Bill Murray is one of them. Like when you see Bill Murray, you want him to be kind of a jerk because he's so much fun being a jerk. Now, Jeffrey, aside from his entire wonderful career, has very specifically created one of the most compelling villains in TV history in Negan. And Negan is a guy who will kill your favorite Walking Dead characters, yet weirdly, you still like him. And it's that personal charm that Jeffrey has. Jeffrey is as un-Negan in real life as you can possibly imagine, thankfully. But he has that charisma. He has the devil smile. He has that swagger. And I needed all those things for Fenn in order to have a character that audiences will follow.
So what are the various themes explored in this film?
Well, in the heart of the film is fake news. And it's really interesting that fake news is an expression that has entered the zeitgeist the last 3 or 4 years, yet the book was written in 1983 and still has that at its heart. The reason, of course, being that corrupt journalists aren't a new thing. Corrupt journalists have existed since journalism has existed. It's very hard to keep your moral compass. So without wanting to sound too pretentious, our movie could be seen as a metaphor of what happens when journalists report their own agenda and not the truth. They essentially unleash hell. They essentially unleash destruction in a community. In our case, it's a supernatural destruction. Another theme stated flat out at the end of the movie in a quote from the Bible is beware of false prophets. And beware of false prophets is something that we feel applies to all strata of our cultural life, in our personal lives as well. It's basically if somebody comes to you and tells you they have a magic wand, they will magically solve all your personal, financial, health problems, everything, they're not to be believed, because life is far more complicated than that, and there are no easy answers for anything. Hard work is the only thing that can get us through things.
So tell me, what does the notion of faith mean to you? And did it change your faith making?
Faith, I grew up Greek Orthodox, and you will laugh hysterically when I tell you this. I was an altar boy. So faith was always a part of my personal life. The older I grow, I will admit, I find blind faith to be not something that I subscribe to. I mean, they're always saying faith with evidence is not faith at all. But in our movie, we show how the Catholic Church, determines what is a miracle or not. And they do it by questioning it. They bring in an inquisitor whose job it is to use modern medicine, science, and technology to disprove the miracle. And if they fail, then it stands to reason the miracle is real. So even the church in its process does agree that questioning, when it's done when it's done in the proper frame of mind and with an open mind, is good. It's not a bad thing. And so I find myself now, theologically thinking of issues of faith and issues in the Bible that may contradict, like how life we feel should be lived. In terms of my faith being affected by this movie or not, honestly, it wasn't. I mean, we were very, very happy that we got to complete it in the middle of a freaking pandemic. But I would say that's more an issue of just everybody just wanting to get a movie made than anything else.
This film. So explain the visual creation of the evil Mary. How did it all come?
The movie Unholy visually, in a big way, is a love letter to the works of Mario Bava, a great Italian horror director of the 60s and 70s. And so a lot of the visual style of the film has been inspired by his movies Black Sunday and a lesser known film called The Whip and the Body. Specifically now, Mary's visual look was dictated after what she's pretending to be. Mary's pretending to be the Virgin Mary. So we wanted a corrupt image of the Virgin Mary. We wanted something that if you glimpsed it out of the corner of your eye, you would think it's divine. But if it manifested right in front of you, you can see it clearly, you would realize it is not divine at all, it is unholy. The mask specifically is both a reference to a mask in Black Sunday, but it is also the classic serene features of a Virgin Mary statue, but now calcified and burned and melted and basically defiled. That was the whole image, was a pretender to be the Virgin Mary. What would they look like?
Together for you. So tell me, what was the most challenging scene to shoot in that film?
That would have to be the entire third act climax in the tent, which, by the way, we started shooting in our first day of production, and thank goodness we did. It's our first assistant director, Steve Danton, strongly recommended we start it with this most challenging scene, because he correctly pointed out, if we waited later on in the shoot, it'll always haunt us, so we might as well get it over with. Now, the reason it was difficult was purely logistical. We were handling 500 extras, maybe 600, lighting effects that would later be transformed into fire effects. We didn't have any live flames in our set whatsoever. Stunts as the audience rushes out of this thing because the place catches fire. The disintegration effect of certain characters, the makeup effects on Marina because the mask finally comes off and you see what Mary looks like, and Marina being Marina Mazeppa, the actress who brought Mary to life, and of course the dramatic performances of the scene by Jeffrey and Cricket and Carrie Always. So juggling all those incredibly complex elements was physically the hardest part of the whole production. And if we hadn't gotten it done, by the way, on our first week, we may never have finished the movie because we got hit by COVID 4 weeks into it. And when we returned 5 months later to finish the movie, we couldn't have indoor extras. So that entire scene would have to be scrapped. You can't finish the movie.
I have time for
Yes,
one
that's
more.
fine.
John? Okay. So the legendary Sam Raimi produced this film. Tell us about your collaboration with him, you learned from him.
So Sam is not only a movie deity, he's one of the nicest people I've met in the business. He's basically this kid from Michigan who made it big. And he is super approachable, super kind, and very wise. He's seen it all. He was absolutely instrumental in the pre-production stage for the full year of 2019 in helping me cast the movie, pull together my crew, design the look of Mary that we just discussed, design the visual style of the movie, advising me on where the effects had to be practical and where CGI. He was with us throughout the entire pre-production period and the first 2 weeks of production. And then he had to go to England and direct some little independent movie called Doctor Strange 2. I don't know what it is. Probably like nobody will see it. But yeah, we lost him then. But he was always on the phone or via computer in the editing process. So he basically took me by the hand and led me through the valley of death in this thing.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Roxanna.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm all set.
All set.
Can you log off? Thank you. Bye-bye.